Why does the U.S. support Israel? It's a simple question, but simply stating it as a question can elicit defensive or hostile reactions. Supporters of Israel find the question itself offensive because they see Israel as a democratic nation with a right to their own lands and freedoms. So why wouldn't the U.S. support them? Supporters of Palestine find the question offensive too because they see Israel's current policies as oppressive and an endangerment to both Palestinians and their land. So why would the U.S. support them? Objectively, both questions are valid, and we can't know exactly why U.S. leadership holds their stance on Israel, but we can explain how the U.S. began sending billions of dollars in aid annually to Israel and why that policy still stands. First off, the U.S. didn't always support Israel. They sent some humanitarian aid right after World War II, but that wasn't seen as preferential treatment, nor was it particularly uncommon. This is important to note because in the aftermath of World War II, clear alliances weren't yet established, and the U.S. wanted to be perceived by the Middle East as fair and impartial. A strategy that was working until the generally anti-Western Arab nationalist movement gained momentum, and the USSR started courting Arab nations. This was during the Cold War, a time period in which the USSR and the US were actively competing for ideological influence over almost every region on Earth. To remain relevant in the Middle East, the U.S. set out to establish closer ties with Israel, because Israel was already a democracy with strong anti-communist leanings. The U.S. wanted to establish Israel as a bulwark against communist influence and a partner for their intelligence and military operations. As such, it was in the United States' best interest to make Israel as strong and as stable as possible. Since then, the threat has changed, but not the arrangement. The U.S. still supports a strong and stable Israel, but the country is no longer a bulwark against the spread of communism. It is now seen as a bulwark against the spread of Muslim extremist ideals, like those shared by Al-Qaeda and ISIS, which Israel does do, but that is still not the reason for continued attention to Israel. The real reason is popular support. Initially, foreign aid to Israel was seen as anti-communist, a hugely popular idea among Americans. Now, foreign aid to Israel is largely seen as protection for Israel from hostile neighbors and the Muslim world in general. After 9/11, around 55% of all Americans supported Israel, whereas only 15% supported Palestine, a trend that continues. According to a recent Gallup poll, 62% of Americans supported Israel in their recent conflict with Palestine, while only 18% supported Palestine. This is the political climate that makes it convenient for politicians to support Israel. But even that isn't the whole story. The United States government is slow to change, and it's significantly influenced by the religious right, a movement that tends to stand staunchly behind the status quo and is more sympathetic to Israel than the public at large. So even if popular support did shift closer to Palestine, inertia alone could keep the U.S. allied with Israel for some time.